Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here on Parenting Playbook with Maureen Kyle on Fox 8 CLE+. One topic most parents can't get enough of: sleep. Better sleep. I mean, for us, that's going to be a totally different episode, but we're talking about for our kids, because our kids are actually not getting good quality sleep. There was just a survey, the National Survey of Children's Health finds here in Ohio, roughly 40% of kids aren't getting enough sleep. That's from age 4 to 14. So we want to make sure that our kids, our toddlers, our babies, we're going to talk about babies too, all the way through our teens, are getting a better quality sleep, because it's so vital. And there is one expert here in Northeast Ohio that I always love to bring in. This is her wheelhouse, as she says, Dr. Carolyn Ivers-Landis with University Hospitals. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for bringing me in. This is my favorite topic, as you know, and what I specialize in at UH.
Yes, you are the go-to person for this. So I think I'm just going to start with a blanket question of, why are our kids not getting enough sleep?
Is so complicated, which is why I see 35 to 45 patients a week, right? I mean, it can be relating to fears. It can be relating to activities. It can be relating to genetics. It can be relating to comorbid disorders like having autism, having ADHD. There are just it could be related to the time of year and winter without having as much sunlight. So many, many reasons.
So then when you see patients, what are the things that you're looking at to determine what are those factors? Like, I know you just mentioned a whole bunch of them, but as a parent, if I know my kid's not getting enough sleep and I'm trying to get to the root of it, what advice do you have for parents?
And I think particularly because what I see kids that have insomnia, right? I see the shorter sleeper. And so what I want to caution parents about is you don't know how much sleep your kid actually needs, okay, based upon some guideline. What you do know is whether or not your kid wakes up rested or refreshed, and can they function during the day and stay awake during the day, right? So the first part is trying to figure out, how much sleep does your child need? It should take them 20 to 30 minutes to fall asleep. They should remember waking up in the middle of the night 1 or 2 times. They could be awake for as long as 20 minutes. That's normal. In teenagers, it's 55 minutes. When they wake up in the morning, if they wake up kind of on their own, they should feel refreshed. If you have to wake them up, just because it's hard to wake them up doesn't mean they're not getting enough sleep. You might be waking them up in deep sleep and not REM. But then how do they function? Do they struggle to stay awake, right, throughout the day? Are they really irritable? Do they have behavioral problems when they're younger? So some of my patients are shorter sleepers, but the parent is kind of guilted because of society or a neighbor or someone saying, well, your kid should go to bed at 8. They should sleep till 8 and they should have a nap and all this stuff. So figure out for your kid how much sleep they need.
That's interesting, because I feel like that's even a conversation among adults. So does the hours of sleep vary just depending on the person and then therefore the kid?
Yes, it varies. I mean, there are guidelines, which, like a bell curve, what's typical and what's kind of not typical. But that is like one of my biggest go-tos, because the vast majority of patients that I see, I tell the parents, the parent is like, well, my kid lays there for an hour or 2 hours. I'm like, put your child to bed later. Your child cannot sleep as long as, I say, it's the need for sleep compared to the opportunity for sleep. If you have this huge sleep window and your kid is up for an hour or 2 at the beginning of it and they're up in the middle of the night, make it smaller. See if you can get the sleep better. And then you can always inch the bedtime a little earlier, which we call bedtime fading. Number one, do that. Do not listen to your neighbor, your aunt, grandma, somebody else that has the same age kid. Pay attention to what's in front of you. And guess what? You might have a dad or a mom who gets by on 4 hours of sleep or 6 hours of sleep. They're one of those like uber shorter sleeper type of people, right? And then they're like, but why won't my kid sleep 13 hours a day? It's like, look at yourself, right? Look at your genetics. And that's the one jumping off point I want to make.
What about teens? Because I know that that's always then a little tricky because then they start to change those sleep patterns.
I know. So, as we know, biologically, the circadian rhythm of teens changes later. And what I think freaks people out whenever I tell them this, the normal circadian rhythm of a teenager, body temperature, melatonin production, is to sleep from 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. Okay. But we're trying to get them up for school. Some schools start at 7:30. So they're getting up at 6:30. So they're getting up like 2.5 hours or so before their natural circadian rhythm. Plus, a lot of our kids are doing so much. They have sports, they have swim practice, they have, band practice, they have all these things, and they have homework. Some of them have hours of homework, which butts against that. And here they have to get up at 6 or 6:30. How are you supposed to get approximately 8 hours of sleep? The average for teens is 7.5, right? And be able to function for school. So I see teens all the time, and I try to figure out what can we do to optimize sleep, make the quality as good as possible, and then figure out what to do on the weekends too.
Yeah. I have a question for all of those parents because I have my oldest is 12, so she's on the verge of being a teen. But I think at some point, every single one of my kids, and it didn't matter what age, they just gave me a hard time about going to bed. They didn't want to do it. They want to stay up. They want to play. They want to interact. What advice do you have for parents about that bedtime routine to help maybe make that transition a little bit easier?
Right. And I think bedtime resistance we see a lot, especially, kids don't want to stop their fun day. And it's boring because it takes 20 to 30 minutes to fall asleep. It is boring to lay there for 20, 30 minutes. So part of what I do a lot is I say, can they have something to do while they're waiting to fall asleep? Can they look at a book with a little book light? Right. Can they even look at some of those little graphic novels or books with pictures or whatever? Because I feel like a lot of the time, a lot of my patients have anxiety. So they lay in bed and they worry, and they even worry about how long it will take them to fall asleep, or they miss their parent. They have separation anxiety. So my number one advice is don't put them to bed too early, but then give them something to do so they feel successful and they feel calm and okay. They're not dreading going to bed, and you're not getting into a big conflict, which therefore makes it harder to fall asleep, right?
Yeah. Then how young can kids be? And I'm talking about all the way from newborns into toddler years. How young can they be to be sleep training and doing that routine? Is that up to the parents or is that more child led?
I usually start seeing kids around 6 months of age.
Oh, wow.
So you can start doing things like and we've heard this for years, and it's so true. You want them to have independent sleep onset associations. You don't want to nurse them to sleep or give them a bottle till they fall asleep or rock them to sleep or pat their back. You want them to figure out, even at the age of 6 months, how to lay, how to hold your body, how to cuddle your blanket or a little stuffy or whatever's safe at that age. You want them to do that because they're going to be waking up numerous times throughout the night, which is a part of normal sleep cycles. And you don't want to have to be there every time they're aware of waking up to kind of nurse them, give them the bottle, pat them on the back. So that is the number one thing, is to really get them independent with that.
And is that realistic? What realistic time frame can parents start to expect longer stretches of sleep? Because I feel like that's another big question that, friends of mine who have newborns, they're going, so when did you get longer stretches of sleep?
It's so individual, and I think people will say that, but I think by about 6 months, at that point, they don't need to eat to drink anything. They don't need to be nursing or having a bottle by that point. So they should be able to have longer stretches of time at that point. So I would say, up until then, but some kids, it takes them longer and they need a little reassurance or a little for the parent to pop in. And I just want you to know too that I'm not like a huge extinction person or a cried out person. person. I am so good at optimizing sleep and building up the need for sleep that my patients rarely have to cry it out. Like if they're in bed for a reasonable period of time, if you don't have too much napping going on, if you're really working on the sleep environment to make sure it's dark and cool and all these things are in place, you don't need to do usually what's called like sleep training or cry it out because they're so tired. They fall asleep easily and they feel successful. Like this is something I can do and it feels comfortable and good.
I love it. I love it. We've only scratched the surface with you. I want to I'm going to throw it out there. I want to get questions from some of our viewers about sleep and have you back to answer very specific questions because this was this
so complicated.
Yes, it is. And I know every age and phase has a different challenge. So we're going to have you back. Dr. Carolyn Ivers-Landis, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I love talking about sleep. Can't wait to come back.
I know. We'll have too much to talk about. So after the break, we take a look at a local company that is reinventing safe sleep for newborn babies. Right in our own backyard, we will take you inside the factory that is reinventing how we are thinking about mattresses and the products that our babies use. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here on Parenting Playbook, we are so happy to be partnered with Naturepedic. You've probably seen their logo right underneath ours. So we got out to the factory to see how they create their mattresses. And their mission was always about a safer sleep environment for babies, specifically, and for kids and adults. They use all organic products, and it was really eye-opening to see their process and see the workforce that is right here in our own backyard. So we want to take you inside the factory. Erin, we're sitting here in the factory. Tell me how Naturepedic got started and what was the mission?
It's actually a very, we have a short version and a long version. I'll tell you the very quick long version. So a lot of Clevelanders will know that the Cuyahoga River caught on fire too many decades ago. And a lot of that was because of the pollutants that kept getting put in there through the Industrial Revolution. And eventually it just got to a breaking point where one tiny little spark caused flames to reach 5 stories tall. And one of our founders, Barry Chick, was actually at Cleveland State University at that time and decided that he wanted to do better for the environment. So that's what he got his degree in, was environmental engineering. And that was in the 70s. And him and his wife, Reggie, were always kind of like old hippies in a way. You wouldn't know it by looking at them today, but they started the first organic co-op in Cleveland in the 1970s. And so they actually worked on soil testing for a number of years. And what led us to Naturepedic was Reggie, they were having their first grandchild, and Barry got sent to the baby store to go buy a crib mattress. It was the last big purchase they needed to make. And Barry's a very analytical man, and we have veritable libraries in our factory. I mean, just books and books and books. Barry's written some of them, actually. And he just knew exactly what chemicals were going into making that crib mattress. And they were so bad for babies. And unfortunately, here we are 23 years later, and a lot of them are still there. And he refused to put his grandchild down on that crib mattress. So he came home empty-handed, and he told his wife, he's like, my grandfather slept on a pile of hay. He's like, I don't see why my grandchild can't either. They didn't put the baby on hay, but he got together with his 2 sons, Jeff and Jason, with this idea that they could make a better crib mattress. And we were actually born in Barry's garage about, no pun intended, about 6 months later. And here we are, we're in our 23rd year of business, and we've got over 200 employees, and we've got 26 stores nationwide, and, and we span all the way from baby to adult.
I know that as a mom, and an expectant mom, I was looking at what materials were going into everything. The clothing, the blankets, we'll get to other products here in a second. But if you can take us through what kind of products are in that mattress. What is it that's making the Naturepedic mattresses, crib mattresses especially, different than others?
I think what makes us different than everybody else is not what we're putting into it, it's what we're not putting into it. And there's over 100 different chemicals that go into making a mattress right now. And what we, simply put, a lot of the stuff that we're putting in there is organic cotton, PLA, which is polylactic acid. It's kind of like, in simpler terms, it's kind of like how they make cotton candy. It's also made from non-GMO sugar cane. And they're spraying and everything. And a lot of people are like, how can you be an organic company when metal isn't inherently organic? We have to put some things in there for structural purposes to make a safe mattress for your baby, or else you're basically going to put your baby on a giant pile of fluff, and it's not safe for sleeping.
Yeah, well, I do want to see the coils, so we're going to take a little walk here, but tell me about the process too, because I think not a lot of people realize that the mattresses are made basically in our own backyard here.
Yeah.
So, and why don't you tell us while we're walking toward, I want to see that coil machine.
Of course,
too.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was so impressed noticing that this was like start to finish all made right here.
You know, a lot of we like to have vertical manufacturing for us because it allows us to control every step of the way for the consumer and for babies in general. We know exactly what's being put into that mattress. There's no guesswork. And by making our own coils, a lot of coils now, whether it's baby crib mattresses or adult, a lot of times there's like a ton of glues and adhesives keeping everything together. We don't use any of that in our manufacturing process. It does take a little bit longer. It's a little bit more expensive, but and why glues or adhesives are not good for babies is they can be a skin irritant, a lung irritant, and we can make a mattress without them. Yeah. So that's the beauty of us doing everything in-house.
And what's really impressive to me, the first time I toured this factory, is how handcrafted everything is. Tell me about the workers and the materials that you're putting into your products.
You know, when we got started a number of years ago, Barry, with that organic co-op that I told you about, he was getting a lot of produce from the Amish already. And obviously, within their culture, they're known for making a really amazing handcrafted product. And we needed a workforce, and who better than to start asking his Amish friends. And what we're trying to provide is not just an organic product, but something that's feels like an heirloom quality. You know, my wife and I had a dining room table that was from her great grandmother's wedding present from 1905.
Oh wow!
And it's still it obviously you could tell it was from 1905, but it still held up with 4 kids too.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to achieve more or less with our mattresses.
And you always hear that phrase, they don't make them like they used to.
They really don't.
We're gonna even if we just stand here, you can see how you guys still hand make coils.
Yeah, there's not a lot of manufacturing companies that do that. We're one of only a few in the United States, and those machines are, there's only 5 of them left in the world, and we own all 5 of them.
That's incredible.
And it's a very slow, methodical process, and what it does is he's having to basically individually sew the coils into each piece of cotton that goes through there for our Halcyon mattresses.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and then...
Go ahead.
Oh, no. And then what he's working on as well right here with the mattresses, it takes 1.5 to 2 hours just to create that whole coil system because they're individual. It's called a hog ring. Mm-hmm. A lot of mattress companies don't do that. They just slather with glue. It's like a round staple. So he's individually stapling every single coil that goes into that mattress.
And again, we might have already talked about it, but if you can talk about eliminating the glue in these mattresses, especially for little tiny bodies, like newborn babies. What does that do when you don't have those adhesives and those chemicals?
Well, it spans most of chemicals. I use this old adage all the time that children are like sponges, and it honestly couldn't be any more true for chemical exposure. So, their little bodies are just so, especially when they first come out, are so susceptible to everything around them. And as a parent, you're trying to protect. My wife and I barely left the house for the first 2 months with our first son, and but that crib mattress, if it has glues or adhesives in there, it could potentially cause a lung irritation or skin irritation for that baby, and that baby's skin is so sensitive right now anyway. Why would you use anything else?
Right. I want to also ask you about the breathability of these mattresses. Now, are those some of the crib mattresses right there?
Oh, those on the ground? No, those are for the Halcyon line.
Oh, got it. Got it. Let's talk about the breathability of mattresses, because you mentioned that, a lot of parents would think you want a breathable mattress because we've heard so much about SIDS, but then you were saying that actually could cause more issues. Oh yeah. What are some of the issues you see come up with breathability, and then how did Naturepedic fix that?
Well, a lot of times, it's a sad fact, but about 3,800 babies die every year from SIDS. And what we're trying to achieve is educating parents on why breathability matters, but what point about breathability matters. Because a lot of times, all these buzzwords flying around, it's been a hot topic now for 7-8 years, and we sell over 100,000 crib mattresses a year, and they're very well loved by parents. As long as you're practicing safe sleep habits, it doesn't matter if it's a breathable mattress or not. What we try and achieve is creating those safe sleep environments without giving up anything hygienic. I have 4 kids. Babies are gross. Comes out of both ends, and their ears and their eyes, everything. So you can imagine if that baby throws up into that mattress. If you're not washing the inside of that mattress regularly, it only takes 9 days for black mold to start to grow. So now this breathable mattress that you bought for your baby seemingly in good intention, now there's a potential they're breathing in all that black mold.
Wow, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
So then what is it that Naturepedic does to stop the, to make sure that that's not breeding black mold or anything?
So what we did differently in ours is we wanted to make it a removable, breathable, washable cover. So we actually have a 3D barrier, a breathable barrier that goes around the mattress. It pops off just like a sheet, and you throw it right in the laundry. And it's waterproof underneath as well, so it's achieving the same effect without having to worry about any of those nasty cleanups. I mean, 3 a.m, you got one eye open, your baby has a blowout. Like, I don't want to worry about throwing my mattress in a shower. I want to be able to take that breathable cover off, hopefully put on a second one, and go right back to bed. So part of our nature around here is, again, we don't use any glues or adhesives. So what we wanted to do with our crib mattresses, again, there's only 2 ways to normally seal a crib mattress, either glues or adhesives or use a tape edge, and that's that binding that goes around the outside. And why that's not particularly good for babies is if that baby throws up and there's not a cover, everything it's going to go up into the side and inside that mattress now. Yeah. So we actually we have machines that heat these up to about 1,200 degrees, and what it does is it actually seals the fabric together. And how that's achievable is we actually use non-GMO.
It feels like it's tighter than if they sewed it together.
Oh yeah, no, it's having a nice tight firm mattress is imperative for your baby's development and sleep too. So we want to make sure nothing's loose on there.
Yeah, and that's what he's doing over there is the heat sealing?
Correct, yeah, and right here as well in these machines. So
okay.
Yeah.
And so that just presses it together and
correct.
So no glues, no sewing. It is just kind of bind it together.
Yeah, and then when they take this to the other side and put the inside the mattress, they have the same process on the other end too.
And I can't remember, did we talk about what material this is made out of? I know you mentioned it before, but this is the sugar cane?
So this is organic cotton fabric, but then we put non-GMO sugar cane on top of it, and that's what we use as a waterproofing. We are the only crib mattress in the world that actually uses non-GMO sugar cane to waterproof crib mattresses. A lot of times, and why waterproofing is so bad normally for babies is there's 2 ways to do it. You can either use vinyl, which they use phthalates to make vinyl. It's basically white PVC pipe you have in your house, and they add phthalates to it that softens it. It's a plasticizer, and it off-gases. You ever seen a really old crib mattress starts to crack in the corners?
Yeah.
That's that crib mattress ending its life cycle. So your baby's been breathing that the whole time. It's known endocrine disruptors, and it causes reproductive problems in boys.
Wow.
So we don't use any of that in our crib mattresses. And the other way to do it is perfluorinated compounds. And it has a more, commercial name that I cannot say, but why perfluorinated compounds are bad is they spray it on. Honestly, as a parent, as a person, whatever, anything that says it's water resistant, you should generally try and avoid putting it on your body, because that's with perfluorinated compounds, and they're known carcinogens. So, again, you have this brand new baby, and you're putting it on this mattress that potentially is going to cause them undue harm.
Right. And then we have the washable part here.
Yeah.
So explain this.
So this is the breathable cover that I was mentioning. So what we wanted to do, like I said, is have that breathable feature without having to throw that mattress in the shower. Mm-hmm. So the whole cover actually just pops right off the mattress, and you can throw it right in the wash like any other sheet.
Oh my gosh, incredible.
And it's got a waterproof barrier on the other side. So again, baby throws up, blowout, whatever, goes right there, and you can put your baby right back to sleep if you wanted to on this mattress.
And again, this is all handmade right here?
Correct, yeah, hand sewn by the Amish here in Cleveland.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So then what other products do you offer? I've seen a few, but there's other products other than crib mattresses.
Oh, yeah.
That for babies too. Let's start with the babies, and then we can mention the adults too.
Yeah, and we make all of in-house too. We also have a certified organic changing table pad, and we it's not the easiest or cheapest way to do it, but from having a green nursery, we're trying to achieve everything we possibly can as the company grows, and that's why we've had that organic changing table pad. We're going to have eventually we'll have a nursing pillow again, which will be great to have, but our crib mattresses, of course. So, but baby, and we also have swaddle blankets now. We have crib sheets, all of it certified organic.
Now, a lot of people like to buy their kid, the crib mattress only lasts for, sadly, a short amount of time. Yeah. I wish they were that small forever. Then you got to go into a bigger mattress. So talk about Naturepedic's mattresses for, twin size, queen size, king size, and how those are organic as well.
Oh yeah. So, just for anyone's concerned, generally around 18 months so you can start thinking about a kid's bed or big kid bed for your kid. But I would always recommend talking to your pediatrician. But our kids' beds are It's a pretty unique design. We're the only ones in the industry doing this as well. We're pretty unique all around. So, but what we did is, again, kids are gross. I have 4 boys. They're goblins. They're disgusting. So, kids until like the age of 8 or 9, they just sit right up in bed and throw up wherever they're at when they're sick.
Oh yeah, that's happened. Girls too. Girls have done that too. Yeah.
I only have 4 boys, so it's but it's it's something that is a concern, and you spend a lot of money on a certified organic mattress for your kid, and you want to make sure that your investment's not going to get ruined.
Right.
So what we want to do is, one side of it is waterproof, same waterproofing used for our crib mattresses, and the mattress actually flips over and that's quilted on the other side, so it grows with them. So when they start getting out of the potty training years, when they start getting up in the middle of the night to actually make it to the toilet, then you can think about flipping them over to that quilted side, and it's a little bit more comfortable for them, and then you don't have to worry about the waterproof. But I always recommend, no matter what, you should always have a waterproof protector pad, whether it's a kid's bed, a baby mattress, or an adult mattress. So,
yeah. And I think it's so important. Everything is here. It's so local. It's in our backyard. It is local Amish workers. It's the factory that's here, that it all started here. Aaron, thank you so much for showing us the factory, taking us through those products. We'll have to come back and learn even more.
Well, happy to have you.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you again to Aaron at Naturepedic. So fascinating to see how it's handcrafted right here in our own backyard. And another thank you to Dr. Carolyn Ivers Landis with UH. We are going to talk more about safe sleep in the future. Again, if you have any questions about sleep, you can always reach out to me and I will get your questions answered. We'll see you back here next week for another episode of Parenting Playbook.